welcome. If you are watching and listening now, it means you have chosen to give yourself a pause, a moment entirely your own, away from the noise of the day. This is Opulent Dreams, a place where time slows down, where stories flow gently, and where sleep arrives without being called. Tonight, I have the privilege of guiding you slowly towards rest. There is nothing you need to do. Simply listen and let go. If you wish, you can support this journey with a small gesture by following the channel, liking this video, and leaving a comment telling us where you are watching from tonight. A quiet way of being present together, even from afar. For now, though, this time is yours. Lower the lights. Settle into a comfortable position. Allow your body to find its own balance. Soften your breathing. There is no need to control it. Just allow it to slow down. The world can wait. Your worries can remain outside this night. I wish you a deep, elegant, natural rest. Let yourself be gently carried. And when you are ready, let the dream begin. The day had not yet begun. The sky over Southampton was pearl grey, soft, still. The darkness of the night was giving way, slowly, the way it always does. The harbour lights glowed with a warm, yellow light. Their reflections trembled on the still water below, like candles floating on the surface. She pressed her forehead against the cold window glass. The car moved slowly along the port access road. They had been driving for hours. They had left London before dawn. And yet neither of them felt tired. There was something in the air, something that was not fatigue. It was anticipation, that quiet, sweet tension that comes before things you have waited a long time for. He drove in silence, hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. She looked out of the window. Her breath fogged the glass, and she let it. The port appeared all at once. First came the cranes, enormous dark shapes against a sky that was slowly brightening. Then the lights, white and gold, dotting the embarkation area. And then the ship. He slowed the car to a stop, perhaps without meaning to, or perhaps he did mean to, because there was something in that sight that asked you to stop. The ship was moored to the dock with thick ropes, but it did not seem to belong there. It was too large, too serene, too still, white and black, with a single funnel rising into the darkness. Its sides were long and smooth, with rows of windows lit from within. That interior light gave the hull a warm quality, almost alive, as though the ship were breathing. "It's bigger than I expected," she said. Without lifting her forehead from the glass, he looked at the ship for a long moment. "Yes," he said at last, "it is." They stepped out of the car slowly. The air was cold. It smelled of salt, of deep water, of something ancient. It was the smell of ports that never change, that have welcomed travellers for centuries. She pulled her coat collar up, closed her eyes for a moment, breathed in deeply. The dock was dark, damp concrete. Their footsteps echoed in the stillness of the early morning. There were not many people yet. A few staff members in dark uniforms. A few early travellers walking quietly beside their luggage. Everything moved slowly, with a deliberate slowness, as though time worked differently here. A porter approached with a calm smile. He took their luggage without a word being spoken, and the bags disappeared, silently. As if by magic, she took his arm. They walked together toward the first-class entrance. The walkway was covered by a long canopy. On either side, green plants glistened with early morning dew. Above them, Small warm lights made everything feel intimate, private, as if this part of the world existed only for them. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Very softly. He let a moment pass. "About the last time we weren't in a hurry," he answered. She nodded, slowly, without saying a word, and that silence was the most complete answer she could have given. Ahead of them, the main entrance opened like the door to another world. Two tall doors of wood and glass, with golden details on the frames. A man in white gloves held one door open, with a gentle incline of his head. The deep red carpet continued inside, disappearing into warmth, into silence. She took a step forward, and the journey began. The interior smelled of polished wood and white flowers. It was a soft smell, discreet, the kind of smell you don't notice right away, that arrives slowly, like distant music. She noticed it before she saw anything. Then came the eyes. The first-class embarkation hall was vast. The ceiling rose high above their heads, supported by columns of white marble with golden veins. The lamps hung in long clusters of crystal that caught the light and gave it back multiplied, in thousands of small, still glimmers. The floor was marble too, in shades of cream and ivory, polished until it looked like a mirror. Their footsteps on it made a soft sound, almost imperceptible, as though the place asked for silence, and they gave it, naturally, without thinking. There were other people in the hall, but no one spoke loudly. Everyone moved with that particular slowness of places where luxury is real, where no one needs to prove anything, where time belongs to whoever inhabits it. An older man read a newspaper in a dark green leather armchair, legs crossed, completely still. A middle-aged woman looked out through the large windows toward the dock, a cup in her hand, in no hurry at all. Two staff members in white jackets spoke quietly behind a dark wooden counter. They looked up when they entered, and smiled, with that smile that is professional and genuine at the same time. Difficult to imitate. They were accompanied to the counter. The whole process was brief, almost silent. Documents, a signature, a key. Not a plastic card, a key. Metal, heavy and cold in the palm of the hand, with a small golden medallion at the end. He held it for a moment before putting it away. There was something in that weight, in that solidity, that said everything that needed to be said. From the main hall, several galleries led away, long, lit with warm, continuous light, with wooden panels on the walls, with framed engravings of old Atlantic maps, navigation lines, routes from other times. She stopped in front of one of those maps. She looked at it for a long moment, the Atlantic drawn in sepia ink, its currents marked like undulating threads, its depths indicated by small, mysterious numbers. "How little it has changed," she said softly. "The ocean, I mean." He looked at the map beside her. "Nothing," he answered. "The ocean has not changed at all." They continued walking along the gallery. The floor remained marble. Then it became dark wood, with a central carpet in bottle green. That softened every step. On either side, small console tables with fresh flowers, discreet arrangements of white and green blooms, renewed each morning, no doubt. The air still smelled of wood and flowers, with something more now, something saline. The sea filtering through from somewhere, reminding them they were on board, that the port was already behind them. At the end of the gallery there was a lift. The doors were of golden brass, with an engraved geometric design. lines crossing at perfect angles, stylized flowers, that visual language that belonged to another era, slower, more careful. The doors opened without a sound. The interior was small and perfect. Walnut wood panels, a beveled mirror on the back wall, a small bench upholstered in navy blue velvet. They stepped inside. The doors closed, also without a sound. And for a moment, the entire world remained outside. Just the two of them, in that small golden space, rising slowly toward the first-class deck. She rested her head on his shoulder. He said nothing. There was no need. The doors opened again, and before them appeared a long, silent corridor, with a deep burgundy carpet, with wall lamps emitting a warm, continuous amber light, with wooden doors on either side, spaced apart, discreet. The corridor smelled of something clean, something without an exact name, but that was clearly the smell of care, of order, of things done well. At the end of the corridor, their door, with the number engraved on a small golden plate. He took out the key. He turned it slowly, and the door opened. The room was silent, a different silence from that of the corridor, deeper, more their own. It was the silence of a space that had been waiting, that had been ready for hours. Perfect. They entered slowly, her first, him behind. The door closed on its own behind them, with a soft, definitive click. And for a moment, neither of them moved. They simply looked. The suite was large, larger than any image could have anticipated. The walls were lined with dark walnut wood panels, with marquetry inlays in lighter tones, geometric lines repeating with precision, stylized flowers, fans, that Art Deco visual language that never ages, that always seems newly born. The ceiling was high, with a continuous golden perimeter molding, and at the center a circular lamp with amber and cream-colored glass that cast a warm, diffused light across the entire space, a light that did not dazzle, that simply accompanied. To the right, the windows, large, with velvet curtains in moss green, drawn back on either side with golden cords, leaving the outside visible. Outside, the dock still, the last lights of dawn on the water, the distant silhouette of the city beginning to wake. But all of that was far away, on the other side of the glass, in another world. In here, only warmth. She walked slowly toward the center of the room. She ran her fingers along the back of an armchair, upholstered in deep blue velvet, with golden wooden legs, with a shape that recalled the 1930s. The ocean liners of another era. The journeys that lasted weeks. She sat down. She sank into the velvet as though the armchair had been waiting for her for years. She closed her eyes for a moment, just a moment. He explored the rest of the suite, a small sitting room with a two-seater sofa, a low table with a bouquet of white flowers, a tray with 2 glasses and a bottle of sparkling water. Everything arranged with precision, with intention. Beyond that, the bedroom, separated by a half-open door of wood and frosted glass. He pushed it gently. The bed was enormous, dressed in white cotton sheets, so white they seemed luminous, with pillows stacked in layers, with a cream-colored bedspread with discreet embroidery along the edges. At the headboard, a panel of marquetry wood, with a lamp on each side, of golden metal with a parchment shade, emitting a low, warm light. On the bed, a small dark chocolate on a folded card. He looked at it and smiled. The bathroom was of white and black marble. with golden fittings, with a large, deep freestanding bathtub, with towels folded in perfect layers on a heated rail. It smelled of something floral, soft, clean. Above the basin, a row of small bottles, creams, oils, soaps wrapped in tissue paper, everything silent, everything in order, everything waiting. He returned to the sitting room. She was still in the blue armchair, eyes closed, hands in her lap. "Are you asleep?" he asked, very softly. "No," she answered, without opening her eyes. "I'm just here." He sat on the sofa, leaned back, looked up at the ceiling. The amber glass lamp cast soft shadows across the golden moulding. Outside, the sky over Southampton was beginning to turn pink. Inside, the silence was perfect. At some point, without either of them deciding it, the ship began to move. At first, it was almost imperceptible. A very faint vibration beneath their feet. A gentle tremor in the walls, as though the ship were waking, as though it were breathing for the first time. Then a sound, distant and deep, the sound of the engines finding their rhythm. And then movement, slow, continuous, inevitable. She opened her eyes. She looked out through the windows. The dock was moving away, slowly. The port lights grew smaller, more distant, and the water appeared, grey and vast and silent. "Here we go," she said. He nodded. There was nothing more to say. She rose from the armchair. She walked to the windows, pressed one hand against the glass. The cold from outside passed through the pane, but it was a distant cold, harmless. In here, everything was warm. The dark wood, the blue velvet, the amber light, and the sea. The sea that was just beginning. The port disappeared without any announcement. It simply ceased to be. The last lights of Southampton dissolved into the morning mist, as though they had never existed, as though the world began here, at this exact point where the water becomes infinite. She had stepped out onto the small terrace. It was narrow, with a polished metal railing, with two low chairs of wood and white canvas. The air was cold, much colder than on the dock, cleaner too, without the smell of the port, without petrol, without damp concrete, only salt, only wind, only sea. She wrapped herself in the suite's bathrobe, thick and soft, cream-coloured, and sat in one of the chairs, with her legs tucked beneath her. She looked ahead. The ocean was grey this morning, a grey that was not sad, that was deep, dense, full of something without a name. The waves were not large yet. They were long, slow. They followed one another with an almost hypnotic regularity, one after another, always. Without pause, the ship cut through them calmly, with that serene indifference of large things towards small things, and yet the waves kept coming. Always, endless. He appeared on the terrace with 2 cups of coffee. He had made them himself, from the small coffee maker in the suite, without calling room service, without asking anything of anyone. He handed her one. She received it with both hands, without saying anything, only with a look. He sat beside her, and for a long time neither of them spoke. Only the sea, only the wind, only the soft, continuous sound of water against the hull. That sound. It was difficult to describe precisely. It was not a knock. It was not a splash. It was something more complex, more ancient. It was the sound of water that yields and returns, that opens and closes, that receives the ship and lets it pass, again and again, with a patience that has no limit, with a calm that has no bottom. The sky began to change. The pearl grey of dawn opened slowly, like a slow flower, letting the blue through, first pale, then deeper, then almost intense. The clouds moved toward the horizon. They remained there, at the edge of the world, like spectators. And the sun appeared, still low, oblique, but present, painting the water in silver and gold in long trembling lines. She closed her eyes. She lifted her face toward that light. "When was the last time you did this?" he asked. Did what?" "Nothing. Just existed." She thought for a moment, eyes still closed. "I can't remember," she answered at last. He nodded. "Neither can I." The ship moved on, always westward, always with that quiet determination of something that knows exactly where it is going and is in no hurry to arrive. The horizon was a perfect line, straight, endless. On either side, only water. Ahead, only water. Behind, nothing now. Only the white, wake the ship left on the surface, a line of foam dissolving slowly, disappearing, as though the ocean erased every trace, as though the journey left no mark, as though only now existed. She finished her coffee. She set the cup on the terrace floor and rested her head against the back of the chair. The waves continued, one after another, slow and deep. The wind was steady, gentle, like an enormous, unhurried breath. Her eyelids grew heavy, not with sleep, with something different, with that stillness that arrives when the body understands there is nowhere to go. No pending task, no urgent decision, only this, only the sea, only the sky, only the slow, constant movement of the ship. He closed his eyes too. The sun fell on their faces, warm, still almost without strength, but present. The sound of the water was like a metronome, always the same, always continuous. Hmm, hmm, hmm. The hull cutting the water closing behind, the engines somewhere deep within the ship, pulsing, turning, carrying them westward, toward the other side of the world. At some point she spoke, without opening her eyes. "I could stay like this forever." He did not answer straight away. The wind passed between them, cold and sailing. "I know," he said at last. "So could I." The hours passed without weight, without clocks, without phones, without anything to measure them or claim them. The sun climbed slowly across the sky. The blue deepened. The waves continued, one after another, without changing their rhythm. And the ship kept moving, always westward, always. The evening arrived without hurry, like everything on this journey. The sun descended slowly toward the horizon, tinting the ocean with colors that had no precise name. Orange, copper, old rose, mauve. The water reflected them all, mixing them, multiplying them. And then, little by little, the deep blue of night began to take over. She had changed. A long black dress, simple, elegant, with small gold earrings that caught the light of the suite just barely. He wore a dark jacket, no tie. With the top button of his shirt open, they looked at each other for a moment before leaving. Without saying anything, only that look that between two people who know each other well says everything. The corridor was silent as always. The burgundy carpet absorbed their steps. The wall lamps emitted their continuous amber light. The wooden doors on either side, closed, discreet. They took the golden brass lift. The doors closed. The beveled mirror returned their image. Him behind her, his hands on her shoulders, gentle. They rose one floor. The first-class lounge was on the upper deck, reached by a wide staircase with handrails of golden metal and dark wood, with a bottle green carpet on the steps. From below it could already be heard, very soft, still very distant, the piano. It was a sound that arrived before anything else. Slow notes, spaced apart, with a stillness between them that was as important as the notes themselves. It was not a melody easily recognized. It was something of its own, something that seemed to be born in that moment, for that space, for that night. She stopped halfway up the staircase, simply to listen. He waited beside her, without hurry. The lounge was long and high, with large windows on either side framing the dark ocean. The last trace of light on the horizon, the first stars. The ceiling was decorated with panels lacquered in black and gold, with geometric motifs, with stylized flowers, with that Art Deco language that ran through the entire ship like a guiding thread. The tables were round, small, with white linen tablecloths, with a lit candle at the center of each one, with fine crystal glasses that caught and returned the light of the flames. The light in the lounge was low, warm, intimate. The entire space breathed with that special calm of places where time has decided to stop. The piano was at the far end, black, grand, perfectly polished. The pianist was an older man, white-haired, in a dark jacket, seated with a posture that was straight but not rigid, like someone who has been doing this their entire life, and will do so until the end. His hands moved slowly across the keys, with a quiet certainty, without apparent effort, as though the music flowed on its own, and he simply accompanied it. A waiter led them to a table beside the windows. They sat down. Before them, the nocturnal ocean, black now, with silver reflections of the moon beginning to rise. The waves continued, always, slow and deep, striking the hull with that rhythm that was already familiar to them, that already felt natural, like breathing. The waiter placed 2 menus on the table and disappeared without a sound. She did not open the menu straight away. She looked out through the window. The reflection of the table candle trembled in the glass, superimposed on the darkness of the ocean, like a flame floating on the water. "It's strange," she said softly. "What is? That I feel so at home, here, in the middle of nowhere." He looked out through the window too. "Perhaps that's why, because it is nowhere. There is nothing to manage, nothing to resolve." She nodded slowly. "Just this, just this." The piano continued. The notes reached them gently, without imposing, without asking for attention, simply being there, like the wind, like the sea. It was music for the background of things, for the space between words, for the silence that exists between two people who do not need to speak to be together. They ordered something light, a golden soup that smelled of saffron, and the sea, dark bread with cold butter, a glass of white wine, dry, with an aroma that recalled faintly wet stones and summer flowers. They ate slowly, without hurry, without speaking too much. The conversation between them was like that. It had always been like that, with long pauses that did not make anyone uncomfortable. That rested. At some point the pianist changed piece, something slower still, deeper. The notes descended, became lower, rounder. They filled the lounge with something that was not exactly sadness. That was more like nostalgia. That strange nostalgia that does not belong to the past. That belongs to the present, to the exact moment being lived, and that one already knows will be missed. She closed her eyes for an instant. She listened. After coffee, they stepped out onto the deck promenade. The night air was cold and completely clean, without a single impurity. The sky was extraordinary, without the light pollution of any city, without any horizon other than that of the ocean itself. The stars were thousands, millions, forming a dense and silent canopy above their heads. She rested her arms on the railing. She looked up. "I don't remember ever seeing so many stars," she said. "Because we have never been this far from everything," he answered. They stayed there for a long time. The wind moved the fabric of her dress gently. The waves struck the hull below, rhythmic, deep, tireless. And the piano, still the piano, it reached them muffled from inside the lounge, through the glass, mixed with the wind and the sea. 3 distinct sounds. That became one. Something without a name, but that was felt in the chest, in some place just beneath words. They returned to the suite late, without having looked at the time all evening, without having felt the need to. The corridor was completely silent at that hour. The wall lamps had dimmed, a softer light now, more intimate, as though the ship itself had prepared for sleep. Their steps on the burgundy carpet were imperceptible, only the gentle movement of the floor beneath their feet. That slow, constant swaying they no longer noticed consciously. That the body had accepted, that the body now expected. He opened the door to the suite. The interior was in half darkness. During their absence, someone had been in, silently, without leaving any trace of their presence. The moss-green velvet curtains were drawn, leaving visible only the black oval of the nocturnal ocean through the glass. The bed was turned down, the sheets folded back with precision, the pillows arranged, everything ready. On each pillow, a small cream-colored paper envelope. She picked hers up, opened it slowly. Inside, only a card, with the weather forecast for the following day, and a sentence written by hand in blue ink. "Good night. The Atlantic wishes you a peaceful rest." She smiled. She placed it on the bedside table. They prepared for sleep in silence, that comfortable silence of the years, that silence that does not need to be filled, that exists between two people who have learned to occupy the same space without disturbing one another. The bathroom smelled of flowers. The towels were warm. The marble gleamed with a low, continuous light. She removed her makeup slowly, looking at herself in the large mirror, with that distracted attention one has when the mind is somewhere else. He stepped out onto the small terrace for a moment. The night air struck his face, cold and clean, heavy with salt. The ocean was black and enormous. The waves continued, tireless, deep, moving in the darkness with an energy that did not need to be seen to be felt. He looked at the sky. The stars still there. Millions of them. Still. He breathed in deeply once and went back inside. They got into bed. The sheets were cool and soft, with that feel of high-quality cotton that wraps without weighing, that welcomes without pressing. She turned off the last lamp. The darkness was complete for an instant. Then the eyes adjusted, and the faint light of the ocean appeared, the reflection of the moon on the water, filtering through the curtains with a soft, silver glow. The movement of the ship was different now. During the day it had not been so noticeable. The light, the wind, the visible horizon, all of that had distracted. All of that had anchored the body to the present. But in the darkness and the silence, the movement became the protagonist. It was a very gentle swaying, slow, from side to side, with a perfect periodicity, like a cradle, like something that knows the exact rhythm of rest. She noticed it immediately. That movement, that entered through her back, that rose along her spine, that reached her shoulders and released them, as though the ocean were telling her something, without words, without sound, only with that constant, gentle rocking. Let it all go. You can now. The sound of the water against the hull arrived from below, muffled, continuous, deep. It was not a knock. It was more like a conversation, the water and the steel speaking quietly, in a language without words that existed before any language. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Always the same. Always. He spoke in a very low voice. Are you awake? A long pause. Almost not, she answered, her voice already thick, already distant. He said nothing more. He simply extended a hand, and she took it, without looking, without barely moving, as though their hands found each other on their own, as though they knew the way by heart. The swaying continued. The waves continued. The ship's engines pulsed somewhere far below, like an enormous calm heart, beating for everyone, for the entire ship, for the ocean, for the night. Thoughts began to lose their shape, to become softer, slower. The images of the day arrived in fragments. The dawn at the port, the golden light of the embarkation hall, the cold weight of the key in the palm of the hand, the coffee on the terrace, the horizon, the waves, the piano, the stars, all mixed together, all still, all sinking slowly. The ocean was still out there, enormous, black, infinite, moving with that ancient energy that never rests, that does not need to rest, that existed before everything and will exist after, but they could no longer hear it, could no longer feel it, only the swaying, only that soft, perfect oscillation that carried them, that rocked them, that let them go. And sleep arrived, without anyone calling for it, without anyone noticing it arrive, the way all true things arrive, in silence, on tiptoe, when one is no longer looking. The light arrived before the sound. It always does at sea, a soft clarity, diffuse, filtering through the moss-green velvet curtains with a delicacy that did not wake, that only grazed. She opened her eyes slowly, without a start, without confusion, only that quiet moment in which consciousness returns, little by little, like the tide. The ceiling of the suite was high and dark, with its golden moulding, with its circular lamp switched off. And the movement, still the movement, the gentle swaying of the ship, that had continued all night, that had never stopped, that was there when she fell asleep, and was still there now, like a promise kept. He was still sleeping. She looked at him for a moment, the slow, deep breathing, the body completely still, with that absolute peace that people have when they are truly asleep, when the rest is complete. She got out of bed carefully, slowly, without making a sound. She put on the bathrobe, the slippers, and went toward the curtains. She opened them just slightly, only a little, with 2 fingers. The outside stopped her. She stood still, with the curtain barely open, looking. The ocean at dawn was a completely different thing from the ocean at night. It was not black, it was not grey, it was pink, and orange, and golden, and white. The sun had not yet appeared above the horizon, but its light already preceded it, spreading across the sky in layers, one upon another, each one clearer than the one before. The water gathered those colours, made them its own, transformed them. The waves caught the light on their crests, shone for an instant, and then returned to the darkness of the next valley. It was something that could not be entirely described, that could only be watched. She opened the curtains fully. The light entered the suite. Soft, pink, almost unreal. It fell on the white sheets, on the dark wood panels, on the blue velvet of the armchair, transforming each thing into something different, more alive, more present. He stirred in the bed, opened his eyes. He looked at her, standing before the windows, in the cream bathrobe, with the light of dawn enveloping her. He said nothing. He simply looked. "Good morning," she said, without turning. "Have you been awake long?" "A little while. Look." He sat up, looked through the windows, and he went still too. The sky changed by the moment. What had been pink became orange. What had been orange became golden, and on the horizon, a line of white, intense light that grew, that expanded. And then the sun. First only an arc, a curve of fire above the edge of the world, then more, until it was whole, round, perfect, hanging over the ocean like something that had just been invented. They called room service. 2 coffees, orange juice, toast with butter and marmalade. Everything arrived on a large silver tray, covered with a small metal cloche that kept in the warmth, with a fresh flower in a small crystal vase, with 2 linen napkins folded into a perfect triangle. They took it out to the terrace. They sat down, with cups in their hands, with the sun on their faces, with the ocean before them. The coffee was perfect, dark, hot, with an aroma that mixed with the saline air of the morning. She held the cup with both hands, closed her eyes for a moment, only to feel the warmth. The sun was beginning to warm, still gently, still with that delicacy of the early morning, before the day decides to take itself seriously. The waves continued, one after another, always. "How many days have we been at sea?" he asked. She thought. "I'm not sure exactly." A pause. "And I don't mind," she added. He smiled. "Neither do I." They stayed like that for a long time, without speaking, without barely moving, only the coffee, the sun, the sea. The seagulls had disappeared days ago. There was no land close enough for them to fly that far. Only the open ocean, only the enormous sky, only the 2 of them, on that small terrace in the middle of the Atlantic. She stood up at some point. She went to the railing, rested her hands on the cold, polished metal. She looked at the water directly below, the hull of the ship cutting the ocean, the water opening on either side into 2 white wings of foam. Perfect, symmetrical. And below, the deep blue of the water, darkening toward the bottom, becoming black, impenetrable. How many things were down there? How many centuries of silence? "What are you thinking about?" he asked from his chair. She took her time answering. "About how small we are," she said at last, "and how good it feels to know it." He did not respond, but he nodded, slowly. The morning advanced without hurry. They showered, dressed calmly, without the urgency of any plan, without the pressure of any schedule. They walked along the deck, the sun already higher, the wind gentler than the previous days. The ocean that day was an intense blue, almost unreal, as though painted. The long, slow waves of the deep Atlantic, with their soft valleys and their crests that shone. And the ship, always forward, always with that quiet determination, cutting the water, moving on, carrying them. At midday, a message came from the bridge over the speakers, a calm voice, professional, informing them of the ship's position, of the water temperature, of the distance covered, of the distance remaining. She heard the number, the distance remaining to New York, and she felt something strange, not impatience, not joy, something closer to melancholy, to that gentle sadness that arrives when something beautiful is nearing its end, when one begins to say goodbye before it is time. because that is how beautiful things work. You always begin to miss them a little before they are over. The fog arrived before the city. It was a soft fog, white, floating over the water like something alive, like something that breathed. The ocean had changed during the night. It was no longer the deep, infinite blue of the open Atlantic. It was darker now, denser, with a greenish color that spoke of different depths, of different currents, of water that already knew the proximity of land. She woke before dawn, without anything calling her, only that intuition of the body, that knowing without knowing that something was about to change. She got up, put on the bathrobe, went toward the windows, and she saw it on the horizon, still very far away, almost invisible, a shadow that was not water, that was not sky, that was something else, something solid, something that remained still while the water moved around it. Land. He appeared beside her without her hearing him arrive. They stood together in silence, on their feet before the windows, in their bathrobes, with bare feet on the carpet, watching that distant shadow that grew very slowly, that became more defined, more real. The ship had reduced its speed. You could feel it in the movement. Softer now, more deliberate, like someone approaching something carefully, with respect. The engine still pulsed, but with a different cadence, slower, more contained, as though the ship knew the journey was nearing its end, as though it felt it too. They dressed slowly, for the last time in that suite, with that light, with that silence. She ran her fingers along the marquetry panel on the wall, along the geometric lines of the Art Deco, along the smooth, dark wood. He collected the last things from the bathroom, the small bottles, the cards, the cream paper envelope with the goodnight message that she had kept. He put it in the inside pocket of his jacket, without saying anything. They had breakfast on the terrace for the last time. The coffee, the juice, the toast, everything the same as the days before, and yet completely different, because now there was a horizon that was filling, that was growing, that was taking shape. The fog was dissipating little by little, like a curtain rising slowly, revealing something that had always been there, waiting. And then it appeared. First it was only a shape, tall, vertical, grey in the morning fog. Then another, and another. And suddenly, the entire city. New York emerging from the fog like something one has dreamed of so many times that one no longer knows if it is real. With its impossibly tall towers reflecting the light of dawn. With its thousands of windows that shone. With its impossible and unmistakable profile against the sky. She brought her hand to her mouth. She said nothing. There was no need. The ship advanced slowly through the entry channel. The water here was darker, stiller, protected by land on either side. On the shores, the city stretched out, enormous, loud even at that distance, alive. Other vessels passed nearby, tugboats, cargo ships, small launches. Everything seemed diminutive compared to the ship, and yet the ship moved among them all with that sovereign calm of always. The ship's horn sounded, a long sound, deep, coming from somewhere very within. That resonated over the water. That bounced off the buildings on the shore. That expanded through the morning air like something announcing, declaring, "Here we are. We have arrived." She felt that sound in her chest, in some place beneath words. They passed beside the statue. She was there, as always, as she has been for centuries, green and still, with her arm raised, with her torch in her hand, looking out toward the ocean from which they had come. They watched her pass, in silence. With that respect one has before things that are greater than oneself, that are older, that have seen too much to be summarized. The ship continued forward. The docks appeared, enormous structures of metal and concrete, with cranes, with uniformed staff waiting on the quay, with mooring ropes ready. The city was already there, meters away, real, concrete, with its noise, with its smell, with its energy that reached even to the water. And yet, in that moment, on that deck, with the wind on their faces, and the morning sun, and the sound of the water, and the profile of the city growing before them, everything was still the journey. Everything was still that space outside of time that they had inhabited for days. The mooring ropes fell to the dock. The workers gathered them, wound them around the bollards. With that silent efficiency of those who have done this thousands of times, the ship stopped, definitively, completely, and the movement that had been their constant companion for days disappeared. The floor beneath their feet was solid now, still, and that stillness felt strange, felt new, like something that had to be learned again. They returned to the suite for the last time. The luggage was already prepared beside the door, the bags arranged, ready. She stopped in the center of the room. She looked at the blue velvet armchair, the amber glass lamp, the marquetry panels, the green velvet curtains. She looked at the bed, still with the shape of their bodies in the sheets. She looked at the small terrace, the New York sky on the other side of the glass. She breathed in deeply. "Are you ready?" he asked. She took a moment. "Yes," she said at last. "I am ready." But before leaving, she went to the windows one last time. She pressed the palm of her hand against the glass. The ocean was already behind them, invisible from here, hidden behind the city and the docks and everything that was coming now. But she could still feel it, the swaying that no longer existed, but that the body remembered. The sound of the water against the hull that continued somewhere inside her. The starlit nights, the piano, the coffee on the terrace, the amber light of the suite, the waves, always the waves. All of that was hers now, forever. They left the suite, the door closed behind them with that same soft, definitive click of the first day. They walked along the corridor for the last time. The burgundy carpet, the amber lamps, the wooden doors. They took the golden brass lift. The doors closed. The beveled mirror returned their image. The same as on arrival, and yet different, as always happens with the journeys that matter, and as the city of New York received them with its noise and its light and its unstoppable energy. As the real world began to exist around them again, somewhere inside them. The Atlantic continued, the waves continued, the soft, perfect swaying of the ship continued. Forever still, forever in motion. Like journeys that never quite end, like dreams that stay.